the Cowboys' point differential at home has been remarkable this season. They have outscored opponents at Jerry World 299 to 127 over 8 games. They're averaging 41 points per game. So, man, the Cowboys are they are absolute wagons when playing in Big D. And yes, it's a playoff game, so games are naturally going to be tighter. But I just don't know if I see Green Bay having the horses to keep up with Dallas. And also, I'll say this. I know that when it comes to the Cowboys, there is the thought, this is what the Cowboys do each and every single year. And I get it. You're not wrong. The Cowboys have a fine regular season. They get into the playoffs, and they either let fans down or they get eliminated. But I feel like it's a little bit different for Dallas this year. Dallas has been sneaky good. The problem with Dallas is how are they going to perform on the road? But as long as they're at home, I feel like this number, honestly, is just a little short. And again, I keep going back to what we've talked about and the lack of success for quarterbacks playing in their first ever playoff game versus experienced quarterbacks. I'm going to back the Cowboys here.
I think the number one narrative for the Cowboys that everybody who is backing the Cowboys is going to say is just that. The Cowboys at home have been a wagon. But I do think you need to investigate and look at some of these games that are kind of cooking the numbers. Because the Cowboys have played a lot of bad teams when playing at home that, maybe are, skewing with some of those numbers. Played the Jets, beat them 30-10. They beat the Patriots 38-3. But look at some of these games down the stretch. And games where they're playing viable opponents. They beat the Seahawks 41-35. That is not a double-digit cover. They did not cover the spread, I believe, in that game. Then their last one, they beat the Lions at home 20-19. So, yes, it's impressive when they beat the Commanders 38-10. I'm just saying, take that with a grain of salt. Because I would tend to lean your direction, but I do think it's important to always look at the sabotage factors. And I think that's one of them. First-time playoff quarterbacks going against quarterbacks who have playoff experience, 17, 35, and 1 against the spread. 32% of the time they are covering. That's not a good number in the betting world. So, Jenks, you look at all these factors. Is there a case for the Dolphins? Or is this just too much ammo in favor of the Chiefs?
I just think the Chiefs are the play. I'm going to be so cheap. I'm going to play Chiefs -3 and lay the juice because I can, because I'm 5-1 this week, so I'm going to do it. But I just have a hard time making a case for a Dolphins team that, I'll say it again, you're tired of hearing it, I'm tired of saying it, they have one win against a winning team this season. Go back, I won't belabor the point, go back and look at the Dolphins' schedule this season. Look at who they've played and who they've beaten. It is a weak schedule. They're super banged up. Was it a couple weeks ago I saw Eli Apple on the field against the Ravens? Let me tell you something, folks. When I see Eli Apple on the field, I think, fade that team. And not only that, they have to go on the road to Kansas City in a game where the high is going to be 5. 5. The wind chill is going to be -10. The coldest game ever was the Ice Bowl between the Cowboys and Packers in '67. But this potentially could be one of the 5 or 6 coldest games in NFL history. And what's crazy about the Ice Bowl, by the way, I remember watching a story about the Ice Bowl, is that many players in that game suffered frostbite, and it affected them for the remainder of their lives. I'm not kidding. It's absolute fact. But this is a Dolphins team that has lost 10 straight games when the temperature is 40 degrees or below. And not only that, Chelsea, we're not talking about the Kansas City defense. If you're looking at yardage allowed this season, Browns, number 1, Kansas City, number 2. That's how the Chiefs have been quietly winning games while the offense has struggled. It's been with their defense. I think that is the key. I am on Kansas City.
Yeah, just to summarize all these points, like I feel like I need a PowerPoint. Do you remember those when you used to do PowerPoints?
Oh, yeah.
So we've got a warm weather team playing in the cold weather. Point number one. You have got a team that, number two, is going on the road in a playoff game. Number three, they're heavily injured. We just talked about that. And then the minus 91 points differential that the Dolphins have against playoff teams this season with a total of 1 win. And then finally, like you just mentioned, the Chiefs have a really good defense. So if that's not enough ammo for you, I don't know what is. I think the play that I will be playing in this game is some sort of prop on Isaiah Pacheco. I think I'm going to go over 65 and a half rushing yards for him because this one just starts with the weather. When you have conditions like that, you're going to rely more heavily on your run game.
Chelsa, are we just going to stick with the Rams here like everyone else?
I think so. Because here's the thing. If our first instinct was correct and we go against it, isn't that one of the worst feelings in sports betting when you say, okay, I was on the Rams, I was on the Rams, I was on the Rams, and then at the last minute I changed my mind and then I was wrong? That's a terrible feeling to have. So all week long, we have been preaching the Rams +3. I'm going to stick with it here. I think this is a great spot for Matt Stafford and company. When you have the better head coach, the better quarterback, the better offense, and the team that has zero pressure to perform in the postseason, unlike the Lions, who have not won a playoff game since 1992, I feel like you take the points with the Rams. So I'm going to stick with it. It scares me a bit that it feels like this is the public dog of the week, but the Lions are good. I just feel like all the pressure is on them here. The fact that all of the hopes and dreams of Detroit fans will be resting on them at home and their favorites. So I'll be on the Rams.
How much influence or how much do you put into head coaching here? We touched on this a little bit earlier, but when you talk about Sean McVay versus Dan Campbell, now Dan Campbell has done a fantastic job with the Lions. There's no question about it. But Sean McVay, I feel like, is a different level. Certainly a man who has won a Super Bowl. Crazy to think that he almost didn't come back this season. I think it was last year about this time. He said, I don't know if I want to return. I'm kind of burned out. Decided to come back. Has really overachieved with the Rams. But how much do you factor in maybe a head coaching advantage for the Rams?
Yeah, it was one of my bullet points. When I said 4 things about this game, the better coach was one of the bullet points. So I think it's one of the main factors here.
Yeah. I'm just saying that it's interesting to me that in some games you give head coaching more of an influence, and in others it's really not a factor at all. Like there are some games in the NFL where head coaching doesn't factor in at all. And then other games where I think it's a big factor. We were just talking about the Packers and the Cowboys, where Mike McCarthy is sort of sitting somewhere in the ether. And, yeah, if you think it's going to be a close game, you have to factor that in. In a game like this, I think you put more influence into your handicap when it comes to a head coach. Or do you sort of give it maybe a similar influence each and every time?
I think it definitely matters more in the postseason. And Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl. And especially when you think there is a discrepancy between head coaches.